Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Wonderful to see you on this rainy Sunday morning. I am the Reverend William Levwood, affectionately known as Rev Lev. My pronouns are he and him. I am the minister here at Accotink Unitarian Universalist Church. Again, I'm so happy that you decided to join us this morning.
Good morning. I'm Sheila Doles, and I'm delighted to be your worship associate today. This congregation is a welcoming and inclusive spiritual home where we inspire one another to live our values. Together, we care in community, grow in spirit, and act for justice. Whether you're a longtime member or a newcomer or something in between, we're so delighted that you decided to join us today. Welcome.
So, our theme this month is freedom. And today, we have a multi-generational service, as we do on every third Sunday during the regular church year. So this will be the last time that we have that for a couple months. We won't have multi-generational services over the summer. And actually, next year, we're going to be switching that to the first Sunday of the month rather than the third. But you don't have to remember that, because we'll remind you of that later. So Juneteenth is coming up. So this service is not about Juneteenth. Anybody know what Juneteenth is? Yeah? Anybody want to say briefly? Here, come up here to the mic so I don't have to repeat what you say for the people on Zoom.
I'm pretty sure it was when, the slaves in Texas learned that they were free after 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation.
That's exactly right. And originally it was celebrated, observed only in Texas, and then it's spread, and now it's a national holiday. So this service is not about Juneteenth, but it is inspired by Juneteenth. We're going to be looking at African American history through a story by the author Jacqueline Woodson. And as a way of looking at that question that you were asked, what do our ancestors, specifically in this case, what do African American history and African American fight for freedom over the generations have to teach us about getting through difficult times, trying times? It's occurred to me a lot, and I don't know if this makes you all feel hopeful, but it's hopeful for me to remember that this isn't the first time that we've had the threat of authoritarianism and totalitarianism in this country. In fact, we've had it full-blown in this country. If you were a marginalized person at different points in history, if you were a woman, if you were an African American, if you were an Asian American or a Latino American, your ancestors already lived under totalitarian rule in this country. So this is our first example of us learning from our history, our collective history, and what we already know about how to live through that time if things continue to get worse, which hopefully they won't. Shout out to those who were at the protest yesterday, the No King's Day protest. So this is all part of how we live our UU values, so I invite you to rise in body or in spirit and join in our chalice lighting words, which come from our new UU covenant, our shared UU values. If you'll say them with me. Love is at the center of Unitarian Universalism. Love is the practice of our living tradition. As Unitarian Universalists, we covenant to help everyone flourish, honor the web of life, be beloved community, cultivate generosity, celebrate diversity, and transform the world with love. Thank you. let's light one more candle. Sorry to throw you a curveball, Sheila. We're going to share a prayer from the Reverend Kirk Lodeman Copeland, a UU minister, in honor of Father's Day. Let us praise those fathers who have striven to balance the demands of work, marriage, and children with an honest awareness of both joy and sacrifice. Let us praise those fathers who, lacking a good model for a father, have worked to become a good father. Let us praise those fathers who, by their own account, were not always there for their children, but who continued to offer those children, now grown, their love and support. Let us pray for those fathers who have been wounded by the neglect and hostility of their children. Let us praise those fathers who, despite divorce, have remained in their children's lives. Let us praise those fathers whose children are adopted and whose love and support has offered healing. Let us praise those fathers who, as stepfathers, freely choose the obligation of fatherhood and earn their stepchildren's love and respect. Let us praise those fathers who have lost a child to death and continue to hold the child in their heart. Let us praise those men who have no children, but cherish the next generation as if they were their own. Let us praise those men who have fathered us in their roles as mentors and guides. Let us praise those men who are about to become fathers. May they openly delight in their children. And let us praise those fathers who have died but live on in our memory, and whose love continues to nurture us.
Wow, our emotions are going everywhere today, aren't they? I cried during the poem, and I'm happy during the song. That's the way things are right now. But I want to tell you about something that happened before. In the Underground Railroad, quilts were made to direct slaves where to go for freedom. And we're going to tell, Rev Lev is going to tell you a story about making your squares a showway. And so on your table are craft bags. Some of you may pick them up when you came in, and some of you may have just been like, what is this, when I put it on the table. And that's all right. So in your craft bag, there is a small square. It's 6 by 6 light colored, you could call it manila or vanilla or something like that. If you have one, can you hold that up just so everybody knows which one we're talking about? Perfect. That is your quilt square. Then there's lots of other colored paper in there that you can choose to cut in any shapes that you want to make your quilt square. However, on your table are also some examples of the Underground Railroad quilt squares that were made. Just highlight a couple for you. The monkey wrench, which is this first one here on your patterns, was meant the enslaved or to gather all the tools they might need on their journey to freedom. Tools meant something with which to build shelters, compasses for determining direction, or tools to serve as weapons for defending themselves.
You'll also see the log cabin on there. That was to let people know there was a safe house on the journey on the Underground Railroad where they could take refuge.
There's also the bow ties right here, which were slaves' clothes, are often tattered and easy to spot. So the bow tie pattern meant that someone would bring the slave nice clothes to help them blend in with free blacks.
You also see the drunkard's path. It was smart to travel in ways that were not obvious, not a straight line, but a crooked line to outwit the pursuers trying to bring them back to slavery.
And another one is the crossroads, which is up here at the top. Once through the mountains, slaves were to travel to the crossroads. The main crossroad was Cleveland, Ohio. Any quilt hung before this one would have given directions to Ohio.
So you can use those, the quilt squares, the ones we mentioned, and the other ones on the paper that you have as inspiration. But feel free to use your creativity to make the quilt squares inspired by that or inspired by the story. We will ask that you don't talk with your table mates during this part, but we will have a chance later in the service for you to share with each other. So just hold out on that if you've got some thoughts about what you're creating that you want to share with folks. So our story today is the Showway, or Showway. If we can have the slide, the title slide for that. This is by Jacqueline Woodson, and it's illustrated by Hudson Talbot. We put a couple title slides because it's just so beautiful. The book opens up and shows you this next. That was a cutout on the first one, and then you see this when you open the book, and then here's the next title slide showing the beautiful images of the quilt and the ancestors. So I'm going to tell you the story now. Well, I won't give that away. You'll see through the story whose story this is. When Suni's great-grandma was 7, she was sold from the Virginia land to a plantation in South Carolina without her ma or pa, but with some muslin her ma had given her, and 2 needles she got from the big house, and thread dyed bright red with berries from the chokecherry tree. In South Carolina, Big Mama raised Suni's great-grandma, raised most the slave children on that large patch of land. At night, Big Mama told the children stories she'd tell in a whisper about children growing up and getting themselves free. And the children leaned in, and the children listened real hard. And in the daytime, when there was some few minutes for a slave to rest a bit, Big Mama taught Suni's great-grandma to sew colored thread into stars and moons and roads, that slave children grew up and followed late in the night, a piece of quilt and a true moon leading them. What a hard life for Suni's great-grandmother. Sold away from her parents at the tender age of 7. I can't even imagine what that must have been like. But she didn't leave empty-handed. She left with some plain cotton cloth from her mother, 2 needles, and some red thread. And her new family welcomed her with open arms and with an elder's nurturing heart. And a dream, a story of freedom. The children leaned in and listened real hard. No freedom in sight, so they dreamed it into being. No freedom in sight, so she was taught to make that story into a quilt. With that red thread and a coded language, she made a showway. A showway out of no way, a freedom way. The dream, the story, the freedom way was their North Star. Another of the designs you can make on the quilts. You might ask yourself, what's your North Star? And I invite you to follow that North Star.
Drinking gourd, follow the drinking gourd, for the old man is a-waiting for to carry you to freedom. Follow the drinking gourd.
Years passed. Big Mama moved on to the next world, and Suni's great-grandma grew up, jumped broom with a young man named Ensler, had herself a baby girl, and named that child Mathis May. Loved that baby up, so yes, she loved that baby up. And one day, Mathis May would soon be Suni's grandma, but not for a long, long time yet. In the meantime, she learned to sew, beautiful girl child learned to sew. When Mathis May was 7, she got sold away, took a star from her mama's blanket, took a little piece of the road, pressed it to her face when she wanted to remember back home, held it to her heart to feel back home, got herself a piece of muslin and some thread somewhere and kept up her sewing. Sewed so fine she was making clothes for everyone in the big house and slaves too. And at night, she sewed stars and moons and roads, tiny patch pieces of stars and moons and roads. Slaves whispered what no one was allowed to say, that Mathis knew how to make a showway. Came to her when they needed to talk, came to her for the stories of brave people, came to her for the patch pieces just before they disappeared into the night. So Suni's great-grandmother had the story of the way to freedom. She knew how to tell that story in a showway quilt, in a coded language the enslavers didn't know. She gave this gift to her child, Mathis May, before she was sold away at the tender age of 7. And her daughter, Mathis May, used this gift to make beautiful clothing and to make a showway, a map for how to steal away to freedom along the Underground Railroad. Late at night, people came to Mathis May for the dream, the story, the freedom way, the North Star. There were some essentials needed to steal away. The wagon wheel quilt square held this part of the story, this part of the showway. And once you got to freedom, you'd need some skills to make your way in the world, like Mathis May's skill making clothes from needle and thread. The carpenter's wheel quilt square held this part of the story, this part of the showway, about needing some skill to make your way in the world. Might be as a carpenter or a seamstress, might be as a blacksmith or a woodworker, a land surveyor or a farmer. You might ask yourself, what's truly essential in your life? You might ask yourself, what skills do you have for making your way in the world?
The drinking gourd, follow the drinking gourd, for the old man is awaiting for to carry you to freedom. Follow the drinking gourd.
While others stole away into the night, Mathis May stayed on, grew tall and straight-boned, jumped broom with another slave. That slave was killed running off to the north side of the war months before he got to meet his baby, a girl child who was born free that same year, 1863. History went and lost her name. Mathis May's daughter didn't get to know her father. He died so that she could be born free. On today, on this Father's Day, I wonder, could I make that same sacrifice if it came to that? If that was the only way to make a showway out of no way? Years later, Suni came. Suni's mama held her up in the moonlit night, showed her the stars, the moon, whispered into her ear, "There's a road, girl, there's a road." Loved that Suni up so. Yes, she loved that Suni up. Suni and her mama stayed on the land they'd always known, picking cotton for a little pay and a piece of that ground to farm, called that land home, stayed on with other people, none of them slaves anymore, hard work making a life from pink day to blue-black night, but it was a free life just the same. And when the day was finally over, wasn't hard to find a thing or two to smile about. At night they cut and sewed strange lines and odd designs. People said about Suni, that child could find some beauty in so many things. When Suni was 7, she was tall and straight-boned like her mama, took in wash with her mama, sewed stars on patch pieces, sewed stars and moons and roads, sewed fields and rivers and trees, patched the pieces together for her mama to sell come market day, called those quilts Trail to the North, called those quilts Showway. Didn't not much need that secret trail to the north anymore, but started living well off the money those quilts had brought in. Sewed those quilts to live, sewed those quilts to remember, and though some could book read, most could not. Stars and moons and roads, picture reading was what they'd always known. Some morning, Suni looked out over the fields of cotton and dreamed of a place to call her own. Married a man named Walter Scott who owned a bit of land in Anderson, South Carolina, had herself a baby girl, named that girl child Georgiana. Loved that baby up so, yes, they loved that baby up. Now, I said earlier that Suni's great-grandmother had a hard life. Suni and her mother's life wasn't easy, hard work making a life, but they were free. Suni wasn't sold away at 7 years old. Her daughter, Georgiana, wasn't sold away either. So Suni was able to love that baby up so. Suni's mother was able to love that baby up so. Yes, she loved that baby up, and Suni and Walter, they loved that baby up so. Yes, they loved that baby up. Freedom means families getting to stay together. Right now, families are being torn apart. Mothers, fathers, deported while their children cry out for them. Have you seen the videos? I also noticed that Suni and her mother wanted land they could call home. The quilts, now that they didn't much need them to be a secret trail to the north anymore, still had the symbols for stars and moons and roads to remember the journey, the freedom way. But now the quilts also had fields and rivers and trees. Freedom is having a land to call home. Georgiana, who grew tall and straight-boned and free, picking out words from her mama's Bible by 3. Reading by oil lamp at age 5. People say about Georgiana, she always had a book in her hand. Grew up to teach at a small school in Anderson. Had herself 2 girls at once. Named them Carolyn and Anne. Loved those babies up so. Yes, they loved those babies up. And Caroline and Anne grew up tall and straight-boned. Turned 7, walking in a line to change the laws that kept black people and white people living separate. They were a little bit scared sometimes, but pinned inside their dresses were Showway patches Grandma Suni had given them. And something about those patches made scared hang his mean old head and walk away. Anne grew up writing poems, and sometimes she made the poems into songs. Caroline stitched those songs into art that people bought to hang up on their walls. Anne had me. And Mama loved this baby up so, yes, she loved this baby up. And when I was 7, I didn't have to work in a field or walk in any freedom lines, but I still read like Georgiana and wrote like Anne. And when the words were slow in coming, I sewed stars and moons and roads into quilts and curtains and clothes because Mama said, all the stuff that happened before you were born is your own kind of showway. There's a road, girl, my mama said. There's a road. And I grew up tall and straight-boned, writing every day, and the words became books that told the stories of many people's showways. Had a baby and named that child Toshi Georgiana. Loved that Toshi up so, yes, I loved that Toshi up. So some mornings, I start all over. Holding tight to little Toshi, I whisper a story that came before her. Now Suni was your great-great-grandma, and when Suni's great-grandma was 7. So I invite you again to ask yourself, what's your North Star? What are those things that are truly essential? What sacrifices are you willing to make for those who come after you? And what gifts do you have to share with the world? Gifts of your own and gifts handed down from those who came before. What's your show way look like? And how will you share it with future generations?
Follow the drinking gourd, for the old man is awaiting for to carry you to freedom. Follow the drinking gourd.
Anybody feel a little bit uncomfortable some of the time while we were singing spirituals in a room full of white folks? No, a little bit? Yeah, good. I think that's good. I think one of the things that I often think about questions of cultural appropriation is that it's good for cultures to share with each other, right? Isn't it so horrific that oppression and violence make that so hard to do? But the oppression and the violence are real, and so we should feel that discomfort, I think. I envision a day, Independence Day is coming, but I envision a day where Juneteenth perhaps becomes our real Freedom Day once we've earned it and we all can truly celebrate it together. Once we've earned it and made it a real Freedom Day for all people and made reparations for the oppression and the violence of the past. So with that in mind, I invite you to rise in body or in spirit and join in singing number 95, There Is More Love Somewhere.
Somewhere I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more peace somewhere. There is more joy somewhere. There is more joy somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more joy somewhere.
Please rise now in body or in spirit and join in our closing words. As we extinguish our chalice, I invite you to join me in the words of our community blessing with these words of David Bumbaugh, slightly adapted. This church is dedicated to the proposition that by celebrating our differences and embracing our diversity, we honor the unity that makes us one and binds us forever together in spite of time, death, and the space between the stars. We pause now in silent witness to that unity. Now that we've gathered together in this welcoming and inclusive spiritual home, let us go out into the world inspired to share our values. Thank you.